You know, we read that we're losing them all the time. You know, we read that we're losing pubs, we're losing this, we're losing that. And I think these are probably the oldest thing we've got that is still guarded by most of the community. You know, I'm not saying everybody goes to church, but I don't think anybody really wants to see them going, you know, because they are what they are. When we arrived, the church had been fully encased in a system scaffold, which is basically a commercial light shrink wrap, just kept out most of the weather. To make it safe, we had to remove the worst of the nave roof. We had to remove the remains of the tower floors that were insecure. We had to remove the tower roof that was literally just hanging by a thread. And we had to prop the gallery floor for anything that was likely to fall down out of the tower, as there was only the shell left. If you can imagine, the fire started in the first floor of the tower. It's burnt through the tower floors and it's gone up through timber floors, and now it's hit a copper ceiling in the belfry. Well, it can't get out. It's not hot enough to burn through the copper. So what happens is the heat's come down again, and it's came down into the nave via the tower arch, and it's burst through the lead roof and onto the clerestories. And by doing that, that's where the damage has occurred. The whole of the church that was affected by the fire was actually x-rayed and ultrasounded. Every 500 mil there was a grid on the walls, and that told them where it had moved and where it was hollow. As I say, most of the stonework, unless it's directly affected by the heat, which the tower was, which is why we had to replace the tower arch, because that obviously took all the heat. And then the expansion and contraction, and you end up with a crack, like a shear line, because at the end of the day it's come out of the ground and it was wet once, and it's still quite a soft stone. But what happens with it is they put it under extreme heat, which it would have been under, and then you douse it, and with however many thousand gallons of water they doused it with, and it'll suck that in, because the stone it was made out of, it's only a limestone, which basically is like a chalk, it's a clunch or whatever was used locally around here. So for it still to be structurally sound, that stone needed to be monolithic in the sense that it wasn't made up with loads of cracks. It needed to be one lump. And, you know, when you think about it, we're probably 800 mil thick, the stones on that tower arch, and that's holding everything above it, including the bells. So, you know, you can't get it wrong. Hence the input from, you know, specialist structural engineers. You know, the timbers to the roofs, where they're oak, and obviously very, very hard and sort of fire resistant, they were cleaned using a dry ice method, which, like in the old days, would have been a sandblasting, but now we use dry ice. There was historic paintings, albeit fragmented, reused from somewhere else. Now that is much the same as the roof. It requires the attention of a specialist, and again we go back to this time a painting conservator, and that is Toby Curtis from Cambridge. And as I say, much again, he comes out, it's all reviewed. The painting is left on the stone, is conserved in whatever way they deem fit to do. It's then covered with a tissue and a PVA, and then we can then render over it. So in effect, the painting is still on the church fabric. The stained glass ones, again, we go back to an approved, accredited glazier, and he will source there's so many different stained glasses, you know, even just flat glass. It's never just flat because it's not mass produced. It's a natural progression from one day to the next, because you never know what you're going to find. If you'd only seen the crypts we found under the floor that we had to build rafts, concrete rafts over the top to protect the crypts underneath that nobody would ever know about. It's all recorded, it has to be recorded. But, you know, I can stand here and tell you now that there's probably half a dozen on the north side which are family graves, family tombs, you know. You can see like through the cracks in the bricks, and there's still bodies in there, and you know, long may they stay there, sort of thing. There's a new gallery, frontal. There's new staircases which are all in oak. New notice boards are in oak. We've built a two-desked servery. One is mobile, so they can facilitate more functions other than those of just being a church. You know, the church have decided not to replace the pews and have gone for individual chairs, which is a way a lot of them go now. It makes it so much more usable. Complete new AV systems, new clever heating systems. We're now underfloor heating, which is insulated from the earth by a blown glass from France, which acts as the insulation itself. And then we're in a line-created floor, which has, I wouldn't like to guess how many metres of piping it's got, with 2 new boilers, everything to try and get it as comfortable and as usable for everybody, really.